I need you to understand something before I tell you the rest. I didn't imagine it. I didn't misinterpret shadows or let fear twist something ordinary into something monstrous. I know how that sounds. I know what people say when they hear stories like this. Stress, isolation, overactive imagination. I told myself the same things, right up until the moment I realized I had never once been in control of what I was seeing. That's the part that stayed with me. Not the creature itself, not the smell or the sound, or even the way it moved. It was the understanding, too late and absolute, that every step I took toward it had been guided. Carefully, patiently, like I was being walked somewhere I would never come back from. And the worst part is, I let it happen. I walked willingly. I trusted my own eyes more than my instincts. That was my mistake. That was the beginning of everything. It started small. It always does. A detail you almost miss, a shape that doesn't quite fit, but disappears when you look directly at it. I was staying alone at the edge of a forest, the kind that swallows sound at night and makes distance feel unreliable. The air there carried a damp, earthy smell that clung to your clothes, to your skin. Even inside the cabin, you could feel the woods pressing in, like the walls weren't enough to keep it out. I remember telling myself it was peaceful, quiet. That was the word I used, quiet. It felt like something you could settle into, something that would eventually feel like home. That's what I believed in those first days, and maybe that's why I didn't question it when things started to feel slightly off. The first time I saw it, I didn't even register it as something real, just a silhouette between the trees, too tall, too still. I remember blinking, shifting my focus, expecting it to resolve into something familiar, a tree trunk, a trick of the light. But it didn't. It stayed exactly where it was, just at the edge of my vision, like it knew not to step fully into view. When I turned my head to look directly at it, it was gone. Not moved, gone, like it had never been there at all. I stood there longer than I should have, listening. The forest was silent, not quiet, silent. There's a difference. Quiet still has life in it. Silence feels like something has been removed. I told myself I was tired, that my eyes were playing tricks on me. That happens, right? When you stare too long into patterns, your brain starts filling in gaps. That's what I believed. That's what I needed to believe. Because the alternative didn't make sense, yet. The second time was different. It was closer. I didn't see the whole shape this time, just part of it. A shoulder, maybe, or something that looked like one. Too broad, too high. It moved, but not in a way that felt natural. Not like an animal shifting its weight or stepping through brush. It was smoother than that, controlled, intentional. And again, the moment I focused on it, it disappeared. Not quickly, not like something running away. It just wasn't there anymore. I remember feeling a tightness in my chest then, something I couldn't quite name. Not fear, not yet. Just a kind of pressure, like my body was trying to tell me something my mind refused to hear. I laughed it off. Actually laughed, out loud. The sound felt wrong the moment it left my mouth, like it didn't belong in that place, like I had broken some unspoken rule. That night, I noticed the smell. It wasn't constant. It came and went, drifting through the cracks in the cabin like a memory you can't quite place. Wet fur, rotting leaves, something metallic underneath it all. It made the back of my throat feel raw, like I had swallowed something I shouldn't have. I checked the windows, the doors. Everything was closed, locked. I told myself it was the forest, that smells carry differently at night, that it was normal. But deep down, something shifted. A small crack in the story I was telling myself. I didn't sleep well after that. Every sound felt amplified, every creak of the wood, every whisper of wind against the walls. I kept thinking I heard something just outside, not moving, just there. The third day is when it started to feel personal. That's the only word I can use. Personal. Like whatever I'd been glimpsing wasn't just part of the environment. It was aware of me. I went out further into the trees than I had before, telling myself I needed to get used to it, to stop feeling like a visitor in a place that was supposed to be mine for a while. The ground was soft under my boots, damp and uneven. Every step made a sound that felt too loud, like I was announcing myself. And then I saw it again. Clearer this time. Still not fully visible, but enough to understand its scale. It was tall. Taller than any person I had ever seen. Its posture was wrong, though. Not upright like a human, not horizontal like an animal. Something in between. Something that didn't settle into a single category. I remember thinking for just a second that it looked like it was watching me. Not hunting, not hiding, just watching, waiting. I should have left then. That was the moment, the first real warning. But I didn't, because right after that, something changed. The feeling in the air shifted, the tension eased, the forest seemed normal again. The sounds came back, birds, insects, the distant rustle of leaves, and the shape? It was gone, completely gone. It felt so sudden, so clean, that it almost convinced me nothing had been there at all. Almost. That's how it worked. It never pushed too far, never showed too much, just enough to pull me in. Then it would step back and let me doubt myself. Let me rebuild my sense of safety. It was teaching me, slowly, to trust what I saw. And that was the trap, because once you trust your eyes again, you stop questioning what they show you. And that's when it started leading me somewhere I didn't realize I was going. The next time I saw it, I didn't feel surprised. That should have been enough to scare me on its own. There's something wrong about getting used to something your mind can't explain, something that doesn't behave the way anything real should. But by then, a part of me had already adjusted. Not accepted it, no, that would mean understanding it, but accommodated it, like shifting your posture to ignore a persistent ache instead of asking what caused it. I told myself I just needed to observe more carefully, that there was a pattern I hadn't noticed yet, something logical beneath it all. That belief became a kind of anchor, and I held on to it harder than I should have. It started appearing more frequently after that third day. Not fully, never fully. Always partial glimpses, a movement behind a tree that stopped too precisely when I turned. A shape crossing between shadows where there shouldn't have been enough space for something that large to move unnoticed. It learned, or maybe it always knew, exactly how much to show me. Enough to confirm it was there, never enough to define it. That ambiguity did something to me. It kept me engaged, searching. I began scanning the tree line constantly, my eyes moving without me realizing it, looking for that distortion in the pattern of the forest. I told myself I was being cautious. In reality, I was being conditioned. I started noticing something else, too. The woods didn't feel the same in every direction. That's subtle, but once you feel it, you can't ignore it. There were areas where the air seemed lighter, where sound carried normally, where the smell of damp earth was just that, earth. And then there were pockets where everything felt muted, like stepping into a room where the pressure has changed. My ears would ring slightly, not enough to hurt, just enough to unsettle. The smell would return there too, faint at first, then stronger the longer I stayed. That same mix of wet fur and something decaying beneath it. I began to avoid those places instinctively, At least, I thought I did. Because here's what I didn't realize at the time. I wasn't choosing my path as much as I thought I was. The first time it guided me, it felt like coincidence. I was walking along a narrow trail, one I had taken before, when I heard something behind me. A branch, snapping, sharp, close. I turned immediately, heart jumping, scanning the trees. Nothing. Of course, nothing. But the feeling lingered, that sense of being watched from just out of sight. I didn't like it. So I changed direction, stepped off the trail, moved toward a denser patch of trees where I thought I'd have better cover, better visibility in tighter space. That's what I told myself, that I was making a strategic choice. But the moment I stepped into that area, the air changed. Heavier, still, and the smell stronger. I remember hesitating then, just for a second. Something in me pushed back, a quiet resistance I almost listened to. But then I saw it. Not clearly, not completely, but closer than it had ever been before. A shape between two trees, tall and wrong, and unmistakably present. It didn't move. It didn't need to. The fact that it stayed, that it didn't vanish the moment I focused on it, did something to me. It felt like progress, like I was finally getting somewhere, that I was closing the gap between confusion and understanding. I took a step forward without thinking, then another, and just like that, the hesitation was gone. It became a pattern after that, small disturbances that nudged me in certain directions, sounds that made me turn, movements that drew my attention just long enough for me to adjust my path. And always, it would appear again once I had shifted course. Never where I expected, always just far enough to keep me moving. I started telling myself I was tracking it, that I was learning its behavior. But looking back now, I can see how clean it was, how controlled. It wasn't reacting to me. It was anticipating me, guiding me. Every choice I thought I made was just a response to something it had already put in place. The worst part is how natural it felt. That's what makes it so hard to explain. There was no moment where I thought, I'm being led. No clear break in logic. Each step made sense on its own. Each decision felt reasonable in the moment. It's only when you step back, when you look at the sequence as a whole, that you see the pattern. But by then, you're already deep inside it. I started going out earlier each day, staying longer. The cabin began to feel less like a place of rest and more like an interruption. I would sit inside and feel this pull, subtle but persistent, like something waiting just beyond the walls. It wasn't curiosity anymore. Not exactly. It was closer to obligation. Like I had started something and needed to finish it. That thought didn't come all at once. It built slowly, layering itself over my routines until it felt like my own idea. That's how it works. It doesn't force you. It lets you convince yourself. One afternoon, I realized I'd gone farther than ever before without noticing the distance. The trees were thicker there, the light dimmer even though it was still early. The ground sloped slightly downward, uneven and damp, making each step careful and deliberate. The air felt wrong again, heavy, pressed in, and the smell was stronger than it had ever been. It coated the inside of my nose, made it hard to breathe without tasting it. I should have turned back. Every instinct I had left was telling me to. But then I saw something that stopped me completely. Tracks. Not like anything I had seen before. Too large to belong to any animal I knew. The shape was off. The impression in the soil suggested weight, but the edges were too clean, too defined, like they had been placed there instead of pressed in. I crouched down, studying them, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. My mind kept trying to fit them into something familiar. A distorted wolf track, maybe a bear, something explainable, something safe. But the more I looked, the less it worked. The proportions were wrong, the spacing between them inconsistent, in a way that didn't match any natural gait. And then I noticed something else. They weren't leading away from me. They were circling, slow, deliberate, closing in on the exact spot where I stood, as if whatever made them had been moving around this area again and again, waiting, or maybe practicing. I remember feeling that tightness in my chest again, stronger this time, harder to ignore. The pressure I had dismissed before was now something sharper, more urgent. I straightened slowly, my eyes lifting from the ground back to the trees. That's when the forest went silent again. Not gradually, not fading, just gone. Every sound cut out at once, like something had flipped a switch. The air felt thicker, harder to move through. Even my own breathing sounded wrong, too loud, too close. I didn't want to turn. I knew somehow that the moment I did, I would see it. Not a glimpse, not a suggestion, something more, something I wasn't ready for. But I turned anyway. And for the first time, it didn't disappear. I wish I could say I ran the moment I saw it clearly, that some instinct finally took over and forced me to do the one thing that might have saved me. But that's not what happened. I froze. Not out of fear alone, but because something about it demanded stillness. Like moving would have been a mistake I couldn't undo. It stood between the trees, fully visible now. No more fragments, no more tricks at the edge of my vision. And somehow, that made it worse. Because there was nothing to rationalize anymore. It was tall, taller than I had imagined. Its body was built wrong, not unnatural in the sense of impossible, but assembled in a way that didn't belong to anything I understood. Long limbs, slightly hunched, but not weak. Controlled, balanced. Its head, I hesitate even now, because describing it makes it feel closer again. It wasn't just animal, and it wasn't human. It sat in that space between, where your brain keeps trying to pick a side, and fails. The smell hit me harder then, strong enough to taste. Rot and damp fur and something metallic underneath, like old blood. My stomach turned, but I didn't look away, and neither did it. That was the moment something shifted inside me. Not panic, not yet. Something quieter, a realization I couldn't fully form, but felt all the same. It wasn't just there. It knew I was there. No, that's not right. It knew I would be there, because it didn't react, didn't move toward me, didn't retreat. It just stood there, watching, like this was exactly how it was supposed to happen, like I had arrived right on time. I tried to step back, just one step, to break whatever this was. But the ground felt wrong beneath my feet, softer than before, uneven. My balance shifted, just slightly, just enough to make me hesitate. And in that hesitation, I lost something important. Control. Not physically. I could still move, still breathe, but the moment fractured. Instead of acting, I observed, like I had been pushed out of my own body just enough to watch myself make the wrong choice. Because instead of turning around, I stepped closer. I don't remember deciding to do it. That's what scares me the most. There was no clear thought, no internal voice saying, "Go." Just a quiet pull, the same one I had been feeling for days, now stronger, undeniable. And the creature, it didn't move. It just watched me close the distance, step by step, like this was always the direction I was meant to walk. I stopped a few meters away, close enough that I could hear it breathe. Slow, deep, controlled. Not the ragged breath of an animal, not the nervous tension of something ready to attack. It sounded measured, like it was conserving energy, waiting. The silence pressed in around us again, thick, suffocating. Even the air felt harder to pull into my lungs. I became painfully aware of my own body, my heartbeat too fast, my hands slightly trembling, the way my throat tightened every time I swallowed. And still, I didn't run. Its eyes were the worst part. I won't describe them in detail. I don't think I can. Not without bringing something back with it. But they held me there. Not in a supernatural way, not like I was trapped or paralyzed. I could have looked away. I just didn't, because something about them felt familiar. That's what unsettled me. Not recognition exactly, but a feeling like I had seen that gaze before. Not in the forest, not anywhere physical. Something deeper than that. Like a memory I couldn't place, or a thought that didn't belong to me. And then it tilted its head, just slightly, a small, almost curious movement. But it landed wrong, too deliberate, too aware, like it wasn't reacting to me. It was studying me. I felt that pressure in my chest again, sharper now, almost painful. Every instinct I had left was screaming at me to leave, to break eye contact, to do anything other than stand there like I belonged. But layered over that fear was something else. Understanding. Not complete, not clear, but enough to change the way I saw the moment. Enough to make something click into place that I had been ignoring. It hadn't chased me. It hadn't cornered me. It had brought me here. Every sound, every glimpse, every step I thought I chose, all of it leading to this exact spot, this exact distance, this exact moment. And standing there, with that thing watching me like I had just fulfilled a role it had already written. I realized I didn't know what happened next, because this wasn't the end of the encounter. It was the beginning of something worse. It moved first, not fast, not sudden, just a single step to the side, and somehow that was worse, because the moment it shifted, the space behind it changed. I don't mean it revealed something hidden, I mean it became something else. The trees didn't look the same anymore. The depth felt wrong. Like the forest behind it wasn't the same forest I had walked through to get here. I blinked hard, trying to reset my vision. For a second, it almost worked. The trees snapped back into place, normal, familiar. Then it stepped again, and the distortion returned. That's when I understood, no, not fully, but enough to feel it settle into my chest like something cold and final. It wasn't just showing itself to me. It was showing me everything else, or maybe choosing what I was allowed to see. My breathing got shallow, uneven. I looked down at the ground, just to anchor myself, to confirm something real. The tracks were still there, but they didn't look the same. They were deeper now, wider, like whatever made them was heavier than I remembered. Or closer. I hadn't seen it move forward. I would have noticed, wouldn't I? When I looked back up, it hadn't changed position. Not exactly, but it felt closer. The kind of closer you don't measure with distance, but with pressure. Like the space between you is shrinking without anything actually crossing it. And then, for the first time, it made a sound. Low, almost beneath hearing. Not a growl, not a warning. Something softer, controlled, intentional. It wasn't trying to scare me. It was communicating. And I realized, too late, that I had already been listening long before I heard anything at all. I should have broken then. That sound, it wasn't loud, but it settled somewhere deep, like it bypassed my ears entirely and went straight into my chest. My body reacted before my mind did. My muscles tightened, my breath caught, my vision sharpened in that strange way it does when something inside you finally recognizes danger. And yet, I still didn't move. Because the sound didn't feel like a threat. It felt like instruction. Not words, nothing that clear, but a direction, a pull. The same one that had been guiding me for days, now focused, undeniable. It wasn't coming from around me anymore. It was coming from it. I felt my head turn slightly, not fully, just enough to glance past the creature's shoulder, toward that wrong-looking space in the trees. The place that didn't match the forest I knew. The place that shifted every time it moved. That's when it clicked. That wasn't distortion. That was the path. I swallowed hard, my throat dry, resisting for the first time in a way that actually felt like resistance. My body leaned forward just slightly, pulled toward that space, but something deeper pushed back. "No," I said. Quiet. Barely a sound. The word felt fragile, out of place. The creature didn't react. It just watched. And then it made that sound again. Slightly longer this time. Lower. Closer. The pressure in my chest tightened, spreading up into my neck, behind my eyes. My thoughts started to blur at the edges, like I was losing focus on something important, but couldn't remember what it was. Why was I resisting? That question slipped in so easily, it didn't feel like it was mine. Why wouldn't I follow? I had come this far. I had already trusted what I saw, trusted the path, trusted the process without even realizing it. Every step had made sense. Every choice had led me here without harm. So why stop now? That logic, it felt clean, reasonable, wrong. I took a step back. This time, it was deliberate, and the moment my foot pressed into the ground behind me, something snapped. Not physically, not a sound I could point to, but a shift. The air changed, sharper, tighter, like I had broken a rule I didn't know existed. The creature's head tilted again, not curious this time, something else, something closer to correction. And for the first time since this started, I felt like I had made a mistake it wasn't going to ignore. I took another step back, slower this time, careful, like I was testing something fragile, unsure how much pressure it could take before it broke completely. My heel sank slightly into the damp ground, and that small, ordinary sensation felt more real than anything else in that moment. The creature didn't follow, but something changed. The space behind it, the place it had been drawing my attention toward, it flickered. Not visibly, not like a light turning on and off, but in a way my mind struggled to hold steady. 1 second it looked like deeper forest. The next it felt closer, compressed, like distance didn't behave the way it should inside it. I forced myself to look away. That was harder than it should have been. My eyes kept trying to drift back, like there was something there I needed to understand, something just out of reach. But I focused on the ground instead. The tracks. Solid. Physical. Real. Except they weren't. Not anymore. They had shifted again. The pattern tighter now, the circle smaller. I was standing closer to the center than before. I knew I hadn't moved that much. I would have felt it, wouldn't I? A cold sensation crept up my spine, slow and deliberate. Not fear alone, something heavier. The kind of realization that settles in pieces, each one worse than the last. My sense of distance was wrong. Not just around the creature, around everything. I looked back up. It hadn't moved, but it had. I can't explain that in a way that makes sense. Its body was in the same place, the same posture, the same stillness. But the space it occupied felt closer, like it had taken a step without crossing the distance in between, like the distance had come to it. My breathing broke then, short, uneven. I tried to steady it, tried to think clearly, but something was slipping. The more I focused, the less certain everything became. That's when I understood the real danger. It wasn't that the creature could hide itself. It was that it could change what I believed was real. Every choice I made depended on what I saw, where I stepped, how far I thought I was, what I thought was safe. And all of that was unreliable now. I took another step back, faster this time. The forest didn't move with me. That's the only way I can say it. The trees didn't shift the way they should when you change position. The space didn't open up. It stayed fixed, like I was moving inside something already set, something that didn't care about perspective or distance or any of the rules I depended on. The creature made that sound again, closer, too close. My head snapped up. It was still in front of me. But the sound came from somewhere else, behind me. And in that moment, with my body halfway turned and my mind struggling to catch up, I realized I had just lost track of where it actually was. I turned fully, too fast, panic finally breaking through whatever hold it had on me. There was nothing behind me, just trees, still, silent, normal in a way that felt almost staged, like a memory of a forest instead of the real thing. My chest tightened, breath catching halfway in, as I scanned left, then right, trying to lock onto something that made sense. Then I heard it again, in front. I snapped back. It was there, closer. Not by steps, not by movement I could trace, just closer. The space between us reduced without explanation, like something had been edited out of reality, and I was only seeing the result. A mistake. That's what it felt like I had made a mistake turning around, like it had been waiting for that. My pulse spiked, loud in my ears now, drowning out everything else. I tried to step back again, but my foot caught on uneven ground, and I stumbled slightly. Not enough to fall, just enough to break whatever fragile rhythm I had been holding on to. And the moment I faltered, it moved, not across the ground, through it. I didn't see the full motion. My eyes couldn't hold on to it long enough. 1 second it occupied a space, the next it occupied less distance. Not a blur, not speed, absence. Like it skipped the part in between. A sound tore out of my throat before I could stop it, raw and sharp in the suffocating silence. I forced myself backward again, faster now, not caring about direction, just distance. I needed distance, but the forest didn't give it to me. The trees felt wrong, too close together, then too far. The ground sloped where it hadn't before. Every step I took felt uncertain, like I couldn't trust where my foot would land until it already had. And still, it stayed with me. In front when I looked forward, behind when I turned. Never fully out of reach, never fully in reach either. That was the worst part. It wasn't chasing me. It was maintaining something, a position, a distance that didn't change no matter how I moved. My breathing collapsed into short, desperate pulls. My vision tunneled, edges blurring as I tried to focus on anything stable, anything real. "Stop," I said, though I don't know why. Maybe to it, maybe to myself. The word fell flat, swallowed instantly by the dead air. The creature tilted its head again. And then, everything stopped. Not slowed, not faded, stopped. The sound of my breathing cut off mid-pull. The slight sway of branches froze. Even the pressure in my chest held in place, like time itself had been caught and pinned. But I could still see. And it started walking toward me, slow, deliberate, 1 step at a time, closing a distance I could no longer measure. And I couldn't move at all. I don't know how long it took to reach me. Time didn't pass the way it should have. There were no seconds, no rhythm, nothing to measure it against. Just the slow, deliberate approach of something that didn't need speed to close the distance. Each step felt final, not closer, inevitable. I tried to move. I really did. I forced everything I had into it, my legs, my arms, my voice, but nothing responded. My body wasn't frozen in the way people describe paralysis. I could feel everything, the strain, the panic, the desperate attempt to break free. It just didn't matter. I wasn't in control anymore. It stopped right in front of me, closer than anything should ever be. The smell was overwhelming now, thick and suffocating, filling my lungs with every breath I couldn't control. My eyes burned, but I couldn't close them. I couldn't look away. And up close, it was worse. Not because it was grotesque or violent or anything simple like that. Because it made sense. That's the part I can't shake. Looking at it directly, my mind stopped rejecting it. All the wrongness, all the contradictions, it settled into something that felt coherent. Like it belonged, just not in the world I thought I understood. Its eyes locked onto mine, and this time I couldn't pretend I had a choice. The pressure came back, but not in my chest, in my head. Deep, quiet, spreading. And then I understood something I was never supposed to understand. It hadn't been hiding from me. It had been filtering itself, showing me less, simplifying what I saw so I wouldn't break too early, so I could keep following, so I could arrive here, intact. A thought formed then, clear and heavy, not in words, but I'll say it the only way I can. This is what you're allowed to see now. My vision shifted, not outward, inward. The forest around us didn't disappear, but it lost meaning, like it was just a layer placed over something deeper, something vast, something that didn't follow shape or distance or direction. And the creature, it wasn't just in front of me anymore. It was everywhere, not physically, conceptually, like I was standing inside something I'd mistaken for a single being. My breathing came back all at once, violent and uncontrolled, dragging air into lungs that felt too small. I gasped, stumbled, but my body still didn't move, because movement didn't matter here, not anymore. I tried to shut my eyes. I couldn't, and that's when I realized it wasn't showing me more of itself. It was removing whatever had been protecting me from seeing everything else. And whatever was underneath, it was still unfolding. It didn't end the way I expected. There was no final attack, no sudden violence, no dramatic release from whatever held me there. Instead, the world simply loosened, like something that had been pulled too tight for too long finally stopped holding its shape. My body hit the ground first, not from force, but from return. Gravity felt immediate again, almost aggressive, as if it had been waiting for permission to matter. My hands shook against the damp soil. I could move. I was moving. That fact alone felt unreal after everything before it. The creature wasn't in front of me anymore. At least, not in any way I could recognize. The forest had returned, but it wasn't the same forest I had entered. The trees stood in place. The air carried the same damp cold, the same rotten earth smell beneath it all. But the meaning of it was gone. Like someone had stripped the explanation out of everything and left only the surface behind. I remember laughing once, just a single breath of it. Not because anything was funny, because I couldn't tell if I had ever really been somewhere else at all. I stood up slowly. My legs worked, but they didn't feel like mine yet. Every step back toward the cabin felt delayed, like my body was following instructions given earlier and only now executing them. I didn't look behind me. I didn't need to, because the feeling of being observed didn't stop. It just stopped being attached to anything visible. That's what I carry with me now. Not the creature, not its shape, not even the moment I finally understood what it was doing, but the realization that I was never moving through a forest alone. I was moving through something that allowed me to interpret it as one. And I don't know what that means for anything else I remember. My arrival back at the cabin feels like a different life entirely. I remember sitting on the floor for a long time, without turning on the lights, listening to sounds that didn't match anything outside. My hands kept checking the same surfaces over and over, as if confirming reality was something you could physically verify if you tried hard enough. Sleep didn't come easily after that. When it did, it wasn't rest. It was interruption. And even now, writing this, I can feel the same pressure that started it all. Quiet, patient, unchanged. Like nothing ever really ended. Like I only stepped out of one part of it long enough to believe there was an after. But I know better now. There isn't an after. There's only what I was allowed to see, and what I wasn't ready to understand yet. And sometimes, late at night, when the world feels too still, I can't tell if I'm remembering it, or if it's still showing me what it wants me to see.